Last minute credit checks before closing. Yep, they're a real thing. Let's talk about this to make sure that you don't lose your house right before you close. My name is Andrew Finney, your real estate geek. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. For reference, I upload 6 days a week, so be sure to tap the bell icon and YouTube will notify you of another one that they think you'll like. Okay team, so let's talk about this. You know, last minute credit checks are an absolute real thing. So I know that whenever you go through the pre-qualification process and you get your loan pre-approval, sometimes buyers will think that, oh, that's it. That was easy. That wasn't so bad after we got through the process. Now we can go home shopping. And you spend a lot of time with your trusted real estate advisor. You find that right home for you, only to find out maybe 3 days before you're closing that the lender's going to do what's called a soft credit pull. So let's talk about this to make sure that you don't lose your house, because sometimes this happens and it's a very, very unfortunate time whenever it happens. Think about it. You're so excited, you're planning on moving, and then you lose your house. It's not cool. And that's why we're making this episode today, to make sure that you don't make that mistake and you share this with somebody that needs to know this so they don't make that mistake too. Okay, so number one, will a mortgage lender really check your credit score again before the closing? The answer is yes, they will. So although your 3 credit reports and credit scores were likely checked by your mortgage lender up front before they issued a loan pre-approval, that does not mean they're not going to pull it again right before you close. And at the time of your pre-approval, there was an impending recheck of your credit can become problematic if that score has changed, especially if your credit scores were kind of borderline up front. So when you're talking about kind of borderline, it just depends on what the loan program was that you're using, whether borderline was like 620, 640, 660, what have you. If you're right there at that threshold and there's any change to your credit, let's say that you went out and applied for a new credit card, or you went out and bought a vehicle or something, both are big no-nos, by the way, when you're in the closing process. Let's say that one of those two things happen, it will hit your credit score, and sometimes it's gonna show at the soft credit pull right before closing. So what happens is generally the closing process takes between 30 and 45 days, and Fannie Mae backed mortgage lenders are required to track any changes whatsoever with your credit situation and financial situation, and also double verify again and re-verify your employment situation right before closing. They do this to make sure that they're protecting their investment, and also they do this to make sure they're protecting you. And you might be wondering, well, how does that protect me if I'm trying to buy the house and there was a change to my credit report or a change to my financial circumstance? Well, consider that if there was a change in the case of a lost job or something, then that might show that you're not able to pay for that mortgage anymore. That's a big problem, because what's going to happen whenever you get into that home is that you would likely default if that was the case. So we don't want to see bad things happen to you. We want to see good things happen to you. So knowing about this and planning for this up front is extremely, extremely important. So the second point of today's episode is, how often do credit scores change, right? Well, now that you know that your lender is actually going to re-verify, they're going to verify your FICO scores up front, and they're going to verify them again right before closing. Well, it's important to know that they're probably going to update. It just depends on the creditor, but most of these things update every 30 days. So whenever you were talking about a closing process between 30 and 45 days, what you do today or on the onset of the closing process might show. It might show faster. It just depends on the creditor that issued you the credit that you took. Now, a couple of like no-brainers, and again, I really want to hammer this point home. Don't do any refinances to any vehicles. Don't apply for new loans or lines of credit or credit cards or store cards or getting a new vehicle. Don't do that. And all of those things will really, really mess you up in the closing process. And I bring that up because a lot of times, you know, whenever you pass the home inspection part of your closing process, you get past your appraisal. A lot of people are like, oh, we're home free, nothing to worry about. Everything's on the downhill, and we just gotta mark time and let the loan officer and the title company do what they need to do before you get ready to close. Yes, but you also have a role to play here, and the role that you play is critically important, and that is to ensure that you're doing everything the same way that you were doing it when you got pre-approved for your mortgage. Now, by going out and doing those other things, and it's because what happens is a lot of times the buyers will just get super excited. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, you're getting ready to close on a home, and you're probably looking at all the pictures on Zillow and on your real estate agent's website, and you're just thinking to yourself, oh, well, we're going to need a new fridge, or we're going to need a new washer and dryer, we're going to need new furniture, we're going to need this, or we're going to need that. And what happens, and it's in all of us, so I mean, it's not like bad on you or anything, but because it's in all of us to do this, you get excited and you want to go to the store and you want to buy that new sectional, you want to buy that new television, you want to buy that new refrigerator and washer and dryer right away. The thing is you need to wait until you close, because doing that in the process can really, really wreck the process. And unless you want to be living in that truck or living in that refrigerator, washer and dryer, don't do it. I mean, it really is that serious, because I've seen it happen before where people will be right there 3 days away from closing. Something comes up on the soft credit pull by the loan officer. Maybe they refinanced a vehicle, bought a vehicle, what have you, only to find out it dropped their credit score, and now they can't close. They just lost their home, they lost their earnest money deposit, they lost their home inspection money, they lost everything along the appraisal money, they lost everything. And I just don't want to see that happen to you, okay? So let's talk about the third thing. So what happens if your credit score does drop between the pre-approval and closing? Well, we already know the worst case situation is you lose the house. Now there is a possibility that a loan officer might be able to pull what's called a rapid rescore, but they have to have something to work with for the rapid rescore. And if they don't have anything to work with the rapid rescore and you're right there at that borderline going into the loan pre-approval process with your FICO score, then even if it's off a single point, unfortunately there is no provision that can be made. And I wanted to toss this out here because this is something that you should know too, especially if you're a married couple or you're two people applying for a home loan. What generally happens, especially in the case of married folks, what'll happen is you'll think, well, my husband or my wife's credit score is like 750, my credit score might only be a 620 or 640, and maybe you needed it, let's say a 620 to qualify for the mortgage loan that you were getting, right? Well, what happens in that case? Well, generally the lender's going to look at both of you. They're going to toss out the high score, they're going to toss out the low score, and they're going to go with a middle score. Now you say, what are they going to do whenever one spouse has a credit score of like 750 and the other one has a credit score of 620? Well, unfortunately, they're going to use the lower of the two credit scores. And that's why it's so important to keep everything straight and to dot your I's and cross your T's through the closing process to make sure everything goes along smoothly all the way through to your closing date. Moral of the story from this episode today is that when you're in the closing process, be aware that there's going to be a soft credit pull towards the end of the closing process. Do not make those mistakes and lose your home because you bought something on a credit, that you apply for a new credit card, a new vehicle, or that you were going shopping before you should. Wait until you close. You made it this far. You worked way too hard to get anything wrong at this point. So please go ahead and give yourself a little bit of patience. Benefit yourself by just waiting until you have those keys in your hand, and then the next day you can go out shopping for your appliances and stuff. Just wait until you close. That way you have your home. Okay? So now what I'd like you to do is tell me what you're thinking about this episode in the comment section below. What really stood out to you in this video and what did you take away from it? Tell us about it in the comment section below, along with any of your tips or advice that you'd like to share with our team to help us continue and learn to grow together as a community. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop up my contact information. If you need help finding a top agent where you live, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, please let me know. Always love to hear from you. If you haven't already done so, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, please subscribe to this channel. Number 2, please like this video. Number 3, please share this video around with someone you know is going to be able to help, because just like you, I'm sure you know of another family member, friend, work associate, whomever that's working their way through the closing process or getting ready to buy a home. Knowing this information up front is really going to help them out. Please share it with them. Thank you. In between now and next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. Thank you for watching today, team, and check out these other great videos that YouTube thinks that you're going to like, and learning more about the home buying process. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.